Hey, welcome back to Herbs and Ease. My name is Kristen, and I'm here to help you feel better in your body. And my favorite way to do that is by introducing people to bringing plant medicine into their lives. Now, we all know that medical care is super important for our long-term health outcomes. It's one of the social determinants of health, but there is still a gap between accessing medical care and actually feeling good in our lives and improving the quality of life. And so I like to close that gap with herbs and plant medicine. So this episode is part 2 of our Herbalism 101 series, where I share with you all of the foundational information that you need to safely and effectively start bringing plant medicine into your life. Our last episode, we talked about the nuances of herbal tea. So today we are talking all about tinctures. I have read your comments. I've seen what you guys want. We're going to talk about what they are, the different types of tinctures. We're going to talk about how to take tinctures, and we are going to cover how to make tinctures using the herbal folk method. So I got my notes. I got my tea. Mo and Appa are both here to offer some moral support. So let's talk about tinctures. So tinctures are a super popular form of herbal medicine, and a tincture is a concentrated liquid extract made from medicinal herbs. Now, water extractions that we learned about in the last Herbalism 101 episode are made by steeping herbs in water, and tinctures are made by steeping herbs in some kind of menstruum or solvent, most often alcohol, and this allows the alcohol to extract different plant compounds and phytochemicals. The resulting liquid that we get contains the medicinal properties of the plant in a concentrated form. So there are a couple of benefits to tinctures and why they make really good plant medicine preparations for beginners. First of all, they are very concentrated and potent, and this means that you only need a little bit of a tincture to give you the same medicinal bang for your buck as a cup of tea. They have a very long shelf life, especially if they are made with alcohol. They can last upwards of several years, making them really convenient and really durable. They're very easy to use. You can take them orally in water or juice. Sometimes they can be turned into different sprays. They can be used topically, making them a really versatile preparation depending on the herb. Dosages of tinctures are really easily adjustable depending on your needs. Herbal tinctures are really common, and you can find them in most health food stores and even some grocery stores. They are super easy to make yourself, which we will go over in today's episode, and they are really convenient for bringing herbs with you while you travel, when you go on adventures, when you're out hiking, or just to have with you at home or at your work. So there are a few different types of tinctures available to you, and they can vary depending on the solvent, the plant material used, and the preparation method. So first you have alcohol-based tinctures, and these are the most common and are made using alcohol as the solvent. They are usually very potent, and as I said, they have a very long shelf life. Now, for those of you who may want to avoid alcohol for any reason, or if you are concerned about giving alcohol to children, there are also glycerin and vinegar-based tinctures. So glycerin tinctures are often used for making medicine for kids, for anyone avoiding alcohol for health concerns, but they don't really have the same range of compounds as an alcohol tinctures, and they have a much shorter shelf life, maybe 1 to 3 years, depending on how they're stored. They do make really good aromatic tinctures though, because essential oils are extracted really well into glycerin, so are carbohydrates and our starches. So they're really good medicines for supporting digestive processes, for relaxing the smooth tissue of the digestive system, and for decreasing inflammation throughout the gut. You also have the option of vinegar tinctures, and vinegar can extract certain plant compounds really well, like minerals and even some essential oils. They're usually less potent than alcohol-based tinctures, but they're still a really good option for those of you preferring to avoid alcohol. Tinctures can also vary depending on the type an amount of plant material that you use. You can have a fresh plant tincture that is made using fresh plant material instead of dried plant material. Fresh plant tinctures are typically made using alcohol as the solvent, and they will have a higher water content, but they are also believed to be a little bit more potent because since the plant is fresh, they have a wider range of chemical constituents and active constituents. If you don't have access to fresh plant material and you want to make your own tinctures, dried plant material is still going to work really well, and I will share a couple of tips on how to make dried plant tinctures a little bit more potent so you're still getting the benefits that you want. Now, we also have single herb tinctures and combination herb tinctures. Single herb tinctures are obviously made using only one plant. Often it's going to be chosen for its specific medicinal properties. They're really commonly used in herbal medicine to target specific health concerns or conditions. And then you have combination tinctures, and these are going to be made from a combination of different herbs or a herbal formula that's blended together to create a synergistic effect or to address multiple health concerns. So combination tinctures are often formulated by an herbalist or another qualified practitioner to create specific herbal blends tailored to individual or complex needs. So tinctures are super easy to take if you've never had them before. You can add them to a little bit of water in a small glass and just down them like a shot. But my favorite and simplest way to take them is to put a little bit of water in my mouth and then squirt the tincture directly into the water in my mouth and then swallow. You can just put them directly on the tongue, but over time, having alcohol in this way directly on the tongue on a regular basis can create a little bit of rawness on the tongue and do some damage to the tissue. Fortunately, the tongue is one of the fastest healing tissues in the body, so it won't be uncomfortable for too long, but I'd still prefer that we avoid having any discomfort associated with taking our herbal remedies so that it stays a fun, enjoyable, pleasurable, and effective wellness intervention. You can, of course, add it to juice. You can add it to other liquid if that increases the likelihood that you will actually take it. Remember that herbs don't work if you don't take them. So however you are most likely to get the plants into your body, that's what I want you to do. Now, you can get tinctures in most health food stores. You can buy them online from large retailers and manufacturers. You can get them from your local herbalists and apothecaries. I have a small herbal apothecary with some of my tinctures and herbal remedies that is linked below. That's a great way to support the channel. And of course, you can make your own. So making a tincture is super easy. Your mind is going to be blown. Now, as I mentioned, alcohol is the most common menstruum, but you can also use vinegar or a blend of glycerin and water. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to make an alcohol tincture using the beginner-friendly folk method. If you want a demo on making a vinegar extract or a glycerin extract, or you want a few more advanced tips on making fresh tinctures and a few trade secrets in making tinctures a little bit more potent, you can take my free beginner herbalism course, The Seeds of Herbalism. It is out now, it's all done, and you can get all of those little details. So you can check that out in the link below. Now, the alcohol used for tinctures is usually a high-proof spirit, typically for home herbalists that will be vodka or brandy. A lot of commercial herbal companies will use grain alcohol and then mix it with water so that they're not paying for water when they are sourcing the materials to make their herbal remedies. But if you are just a person hanging out at home, a high-proof spirit that is low in sugar is totally fine and what most people are going to use. It should at least have 40% alcohol, so an 80 proof alcohol, which means it's 40% alcohol and 60% water. Now, the folk method of making tinctures has been used for centuries in people's medicine to extract the properties of plants. There are more modern and standardized approaches, but for home use and for beginners, the folk method is perfect, and it's actually preferred for a lot of herbalists. Herbalism is the people's medicine, and folk tinctures are the people's medicine preparation. It's very easy to do in your home and it's very effective. So to make a tincture, you are going to need a clean glass jar and a lid, your herb of choice. It can be fresh or dried depending on what you have access to. I'm going to use dried herbs for this demonstration. We do love a fresh herb tincture, but if you don't have access to fresh medicinal herbs, again, dried herbal tinctures work really well for the home herbalist in most cases. I am going to be using dried yarrow for this demo. You're going to need your menstruum. I'm going to be using vodka today, and it is my preferred menstruum because it's affordable and the flavors of the herbs come out really well in it because vodka doesn't have a super strong taste. And I'm an herb nerd. I want to taste the herbs, so that's what I like to use. You're also going to need a pen and some labels, as well as some dosage bottles for when you are finally ready to harvest your tincture. So to make a tincture, place your herb material into a glass jar. You're going to cover your herbs with your solvent, leaving about 1 to 2 inches of space between the herb and the top of the liquid. Sometimes the herbs are going to float up to the top, so the space is going to be on the bottom. Sometimes you have different herbs that float to the bottom and then to the top, so maybe the space is going to be in the middle. Regardless, you're going to cover your herbs and add some extra solvent so that there's space for the herbs to actually move around and breathe. Then you will pop a lid on it. You're going to label this jar with the date, the ingredients. I also like to make a little bit of a note about when I can harvest this. And for this folk method, you usually want to let your tincture sit for about 4 to 6 weeks. Now, an important part of tincture making is agitation. So agitation refers to the process of shaking your tinctures during the extraction period, and it helps to improve the extraction of the compounds and enhance the potency of the tincture. It also increases the surface area contact between the plants and the menstruum, and it helps to break down the cell walls of the plant material and to ensure uniform distribution. And all you have to do is shake the jar every day throughout the extraction period. Ideally every day, maybe every other day, as often as you can remember it. So as I mentioned, a fresh tincture is usually going to be a little bit more potent than a dried tincture, but there are a few ways that you can increase the strength of dried tinctures. These suggestions I learned from my clinical herbalism teacher, Thomas Easley, who runs the Eclectic School of Herbal Medicine. He has a really great book, The Modern Herbal Dispensary, and I highly suggest getting this book if you see yourself becoming an herb nerd and you want your own herbal library. So a couple of ways that you can increase the strength of your tinctures is first to blend the tincture. This is going to increase the surface area and the agitation. I do notice that a blended tincture is a little bit stronger than an unblended tincture, and it's done faster, usually in as little as 3 to 4 weeks, as opposed to 4 to 6 weeks. You can also give your tinctures a warm bath, letting them sit in the warm water bath. Now, you don't want to boil your tinctures. I like to just make sure that the lid is on really tight. I put them in a bowl and I pour hot water over the tincture jars, and then I let them sit for a few hours, every once in a while, adding a little bit more hot water so it stays nice and warm. Some herbalists like to leave their tinctures in a cool and dark place. I prefer to keep them on a sunny window. 1, because I like the extra layer of heat on my tinctures, and 2, I almost definitely will not remember to shake them if they're out of sight and out of mind. So I suggest using your personal preference, your intuition on this one, doing what feels best for you. As you are going to come to learn as you engage more in the herbal community, is that pretty much no one agrees on anything, and there are going to be a ton of different suggestions on how to do a single thing. I heard a joke once that the only thing that herbalists will agree on is that we don't want to use aluminum cookware, but other than that, everyone is going to have a different opinion on literally everything. So you get to use your intuition on this. I like having my things in a window. You get to store them in a cupboard if you want. So when your tincture is finally done, you can either strain it all at once, storing them in individual dropper bottles, or keep it all in a large jar. You can also just harvest 1 bottle at a time and leave the herbs and menstruum in a jar. The alcohol will act as a preservative, so this can hang out for a while. Now, in terms of storing your tinctures when they are done, first, remember that shelf life is going to depend on what you used as a menstruum. Alcohol tinctures are going to last the longest, more than 5 years, maybe 10 years, maybe 15 years. It's gonna last a long time. Like you'd be surprised at how long some of my tinctures I have, and they're still very effective. You want to store your finished tinctures in a cool, dark place like a cupboard or a medicine cabinet, and you can also store them in a dark amber bottle or blue bottle, which is usually what they will come in unless you are making your own. Obviously, you want to keep them out of reach of young children because you don't want them breaking any glass or taking any herbs that are a little bit too strong for them. You can definitely give herbs to kids, but they are always going to take smaller dosages than adults. Now, the dosage and frequency of a tincture is going to depend on a few factors, but for the most part, a standard dose is 40 to 60 drops or 1 to 3 dropper fulls of tincture. Not 1 to 3 drops. This isn't homeopathy. 1 to 3 dropper fulls. For acute ailments, I suggest taking a dose every 2 hours or so to manage symptoms, to speed up the recovery of infections and colds and flus. But then for general wellness, 1 dose 2 to 3 times a day is a really great way to go. At some point, dosing your herbs and dosing your tinctures is kind of like asking how much broccoli or salad you would have in one sitting. It's going to depend on the person. It's going to depend on the context. There are going to be a lot of variations from individual to individual, depending on how sensitive they are to herbs, depending on their body size, their ailment, their symptoms, and so on. Now, if you do need specifics, though, you can feel free to ask questions in the comments. I try to get to them as much as possible. I also have a Patreon community where I do regular Q&A sessions to help support the growth of the channel. So you can join that if you want to get your herbal questions answered, connect with me a little bit more, get regular recipes and some content that I don't share anywhere else. And if you want to help influence the direction of the channel, all of that can be done through our Patreon at Herbs and Ease. And then of course, if you have questions, I also highly suggest finding your local herbalists. We're all over the place, guys. Find out who is in your community. Go out and make some plant friends. Try to learn from the people who are close to you. Having a lot of different teachers and educational resources is really valuable. So yeah, do a little Google search and find some plant friends. And then of course, learn from the herbs themselves. Herbalism is incredibly experiential. Right here, we are engaging in theoretical learning, but there is no replacement from actually having a relationship with the plants. The plants themselves will teach you so much more than I ever could. So definitely go try a bunch of remedies and see what happens. Maybe not all at the same time so that you can differentiate what effect is being caused by what herb. But yeah, go try plants. Go try remedies, see what happens. Now, of course, there are a few tinctures that I think everyone should have in their medicine cabinet. So if you want to know where to start bringing tinctures into your life, check out that video. And remember that this is part 2 of the Herbs and Ease Foundational Herbalism 101 series. And next up in the series, we are getting to know herbal energetics and a little bit about how herbs work in the body, and you don't want to miss it. It's going to be really good foundational information, so make sure that you subscribe. And until next time, stay cool. Go make a tincture, come back and let me know how it goes. And yeah, okay, I love you. Bye.